Welcome to another episode. There's been an argument weighing on my mind for many years now. Which is better, office or trade work? The common denominator is everybody will say that you go to a college and so you can get into a good job and don't do trade work. But honestly, what's the problem with trade work? Like, I know a lot of people in trades.
There's not a problem with trade work. But being raised in the generation that we were all raised in, it was, why work hard for a living when you could go get an office job?
Go to college.
Get a degree.
So
why work hard? That's where I feel like our generation was pushed. That's why there is such a shortage of truck drivers to this day. That's just one instance. There's still shortages on plumbers and electricians,
welders,
everything,
automotive techs.
But I honestly think it was just the way our generation was raised. Why work hard for your money? I'm not saying office work isn't hard. I'm just saying it's not labor. It's not labor intensive.
We were told to go to college, get a degree, so you have a cushy job and not be in a laborious position where you're going to break your back working the 9 to 5 instead of being able to sit at a desk with air conditioning. I did trade work. I also worked retail, which I don't feel like that's office. It's definitely not a cushy job for sure.
No, I don't think it's considered an office job, but it's also not considered a trade either.
No, it's not.
Retail is generally considered just a beginner job. Which, don't get me wrong,
and I disagree with that too. So, but
I think, don't get me wrong, retail is a bitch of a job. Dealing with public every day, people who can make a career out of that, kudos to them. But no, like what?
I did years and years with it.
My main thing is I think the main drive has always been go to college. And back then, I'm sure that college actually stood for something. And that would push you to be able to get, like, whatever job you wanted. But
in middle school and high school, when they were really like pushing us, like, 8th and 9th grade, when they're like, oh, go to college, like having a degree actually meant something.
And it did mean something.
Having a degree nowadays doesn't mean that you're going to have that job that you got a degree for. Like, my sister has a degree in childhood development and doesn't even use it.
Or liberal arts. I still don't know what that's even technically for.
But it's like, what they pushed us so early on in our late middle school, early high school years doesn't even matter now.
I think the only thing that it would really show you is that you can stick something out for X amount of years.
Correct. But that's also what work history is for, right? It shows that you're able to stay with a company for so long, or
you're reliable,
or
you're a hard worker, you have extensive knowledge in that field.
So, I don't know. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I mean, I have an office setting job. I do think it's stressful at times, but it's also not labor intensive. And do I think I can handle a labor intensive job? Yes, probably I could, but I prefer the job that I have. I like the freedom it gives me.
I think the main difference between trade work and office work is the different types of stamina you're using. So, like, for trade work, like you said, it's labor intensive. You got to have a good muscle. You got to have muscle stamina. You got to be able to keep on going. Whereas office work it's all mental. You what? Well, you,
I
just-
disagree. I disagree with that
Like-
because I was in a very, I had a trade job for many years. I worked in an industry where I specialized in vehicle wiring and motorcycle wiring, and it's very mentally draining for one. And I mean, physically, you're not having to lift heavy shit, nothing like that, but the knowledge and patience it takes to do that kind of job is a lot different than being, I don't know, a carpenter. You know, there are two different types of, I guess, mental states when you're doing those positions. Like being a carpenter, there could be a lot more heavy lifting in that. Maybe not. Just depends on what kind of carpenter you are. However, being CDL, it's very much a mental game because you have to focus. You're on the roads for long hours, for weeks at times, away from your family. So I don't think it's the stamina.
Yeah, but there-
I think it's a mindset.
So generally, when people think trade, or well, with any trade, really, there's pretty much. I mean, there's different ways to do it, but there's always a certain type of method. Now, people will even say with carpentry. Yes, there's hundreds of different ways to cut a board, make it fit the way you want it, and come out with a product, but it's still a method. You're not having to really strain your brain to think, okay, well, how is this even going to get done? Whereas office work, that's all that, in my experience, that's all it's ever been. There is no one method. You're given the end product, and you have to try and find the way up to the finished product. Whereas with trade, it's okay. Here's what we've done, or here's what we need, and here's how everybody's done it in the past. Here's different methods. You choose yours. So instead of having to figure out how to get it done, you got to build up your physical stamina.
And I disagree with that statement too. Just for just for the fact that like when you're doing vehicle or motorcycle electrical, they're not the same. Year to year, it's not the same.
Now, don't get me wrong. Not every trade.
Motorcycle, it's not the same.
Not
So,
every. Not every trade is the same. But
no. But
with-
like you're comparing it to office, like you don't have one set way. In some office positions, you do the same thing every day. You do the same task every day. Or whatever. I mean, like when you're specializing in vehicle electrical, depending on what is being asked of you by your customer, depends on what you're doing with this electrical. So I installed LED lighting on a motorcycle one time. It took me two weekends to do it. Probably about 9 to 10 hours every day to do it, and I had to figure out how to design an electrical wiring system, like skeleton inside of this motorcycle to make it work. So everything would function all together as a unit, but would not affect the other lights if something was to happen to one set of lights. So it was.
Right, but there's a direct procedure on how to fix everything in the machine.
There's not, though, always, especially when it comes down to electrical.
You follow the wires.
That doesn't mean anything. Just because you follow wires doesn't mean that you're going to find your problem or solution.
Right, but there's for example, say the blinker's the problem. You already know, okay, it's not the carburetor or the muffler.
No. That's false. My tail light was out, but you know what the cause of the issue was? My radio. You tell me you were going to figure that one out, bud.
That one's weird.
It's electrical because it all ties in together.
The one common solution
Oh,
isn't
understand.
necessarily that solution. So with his, because the wiring that connected to the dash, which ran the lights in the back, run through where the stereo was, and it got connected improperly, it was sending a high voltage where it was blowing the lights.
Yeah, obviously, I don't know too much about automotive, but
But my point is
I-
like when
I-
for office setting is like there's in his job, for example, literally we spent 4 hours going step by step on how to do something and making notes for someone so that they can be able to do it. This is exactly how you do it every day, every week.
I wasn't saying that trade work isn't mentally stressful either. Because now not only are you out in the heat doing this manual labor, but you're also having people yell at you, and it's a whole nother ballgame. I still think, though, that office work is mainly more mentally stressful, while trade work is mainly more physically stressful or straining. Office is mentally straining, trade is physically straining.
Yes, I will agree with you on that statement. It is trade work generally is more physically straining than an office job is.
Now, every job is stressful. But so now that we've agreed on that little aspect there, now I forgot exactly where we were going with this.
It's basically
But-
what office job or a trade job. Like, why is one held to a higher standard than the other, or seeked higher by a community or by a generation than others? I guess you could say. Because like I said, when I was being raised, it wasn't go become a truck driver. Become a landscaper, or go become a plumber. It was go to college, get a degree, so you don't have to work hard. That's basically what it was. So you don't have to physically work hard the rest of your life. And I don't know if that was the case for every generation, but I'm just saying, like, that's how it was.
I understand some jobs do require some sort of degree, but now even trade work
to this day, having a degree does help, but it's not nearly as.
It's only
Required.
required. It's only required in certain jobs and up to a certain management level.
Correct.
And yeah,
So
like
because
doctors and lawyers, you need a
if
degree.
I didn't have my bachelor's degree, I wouldn't be able to go up to the next step in management. If in my company, if I didn't have my bachelor's degree.
And see, I still think that's complete bullshit. If you know the job,
You know the job. I agree with you, but then that's not how
but
it is. in
because
all-
you don't have
all-
it,
But
Yeah.
but then you get companies that will pay for you. You know what I mean? It's not that it's a requirement, but they just want to have they want to have the best of the best. So they're going to pay you to go to finish school to work for them.
and even that's only some companies. Other companies,
But it's a
they
lot
don't
more.
help
It's a
you at
lot
all.
more companies than you think. I mean, Taco Bell pays for people to go to college.
Yeah,
So
McDonald's
I
has
mean,
something.
it's a lot more than
Yeah.
you actually really think there is.
I know there's a lot of companies out there that'll help. One method that a lot of companies do is college reimbursement.
That is the most common.
It is the most common, and it's the most ridiculous method out of all of them. For example, if I had the money to go to college, don't you think I would have already gone? College is so damn expensive that people are well into their 60s and still trying to pay off. College
I agree. I mean, it's expensive, but I also disagree. You can go to college. You could go to college right now. It's called student loans, and that's why they're out there.
Right. But why?
So you're not going to any statement coming out of your mouth right now is not going to argue against that. They
Well,
have
why would
People
I
don't want to
want?
put themselves in that kind of debt.
because
Yeah, and that financial debt.
it's not if you set yourself. Let's just put it this way: as long as you're going to school, you don't have to pay anything back, right? So as soon as you graduate, you should be going to a job that's going to be able to help you afford that to pay it back.
But that's not the way it works. But if the company is wanting me to go to college for them, in my mind, and they're already saying, we've got the money to send you, then why go that extra step up, but you pay for it first and we'll pay it back? No, just
Because what if
pay
you leave?
for the...
It's because it's what
then
if you
put that
leave?
clause, and all the other companies, that's what they do. If you leave or fail or not even meet a certain GPA in that class,
Mhm.
then you have to pay for it. But up front, those companies will pay for it.
So
there's no
yeah,
other financial...
my company doesn't give it to me after the end of the semester. They repay it back. If I get an A, they pay for it 100%. If I get a B, they pay 85% of it. So like that's how my company does it.
But again, they have the money, and they've already admitted that.
But it's also to protect them, because if I took the money, I don't have to enroll into school. They would write me a check that I don't have to
Don't you have
enroll.
to provide proof of what your grades are?
You have to get the money now, but you're telling them to get the money before you go to school. Who do they write the check out to? Yourself.
The college.
No, it would be to you. When are we going to the college? Then the college wouldn't know they can't write it out to the college, because then the college wouldn't know who to go to.
They could write it up to the college and put for the name of the student on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that I don't know. I just feel like that's a lot of steps. I mean, just saying.
I totally understand where like you're coming from, but I also understand where Garrett's coming from. It's like, if you want me to go to college so bad, then pay for it. I'll go, and
a lot of companies do that too. Like I know Intel will completely pay for it. I mean, as long as you are employed by Intel, in Oregon at least, you can go to Oregon State for free, tuition free, or something like that. I don't know if it's Oregon State, but it's one of the schools in Hillsborough or in Oregon. So,
But I've even had bosses in both trade work and office work both say that they would much rather have somebody who has learned the job through experience over somebody with a piece of paper.
it's because of when, especially in trade work, because I've worked in it and everything like that. Like UTI, for example, a lot of places don't like hiring from UTI because these kids come in thinking that they know everything and they are the best of the best. And learning at a school versus learning in real life, because it's not the same, especially in automotive, it is two different things, because shit happens that college will never teach you. So they rather hire someone and they'll pay for you to get your ASEs, but when you learn on hand, you don't actually have to go to college. You can just go and take that test. You don't have to go get the degree from UTI or Intellitech. A lot of places will allow you to work and learn and get the experience through them. They'll send you to classes to keep you up to date on new vehicles coming out, but they'll pay for you to get your test, your ASE test done. And then there's some places that just want you to go to college. They want you to have your ASEs before they even hire you. So, I mean, it does go hand in hand also with like office jobs. Some office jobs, they want you to have that degree before they hire you.
My job hired me without my degree. I finished my degree while I was employed by them. So,
but you were going to school already for it.
Not for nothing to do with what I do.
And that's another thing. If you have a bachelor's degree in history, why should that hold any value in a computer job?
It
I
doesn't.
don't know what you went to school for,
because
but
it's a degree.
that's
But
my
it's-
point, though. Well, who cares? If I was a boss and I had somebody that has experience in computers, but another guy that has a degree in history, I'm going with a guy with experience.
But that is why. So the guy in the degree in
because-
history, does he not have experience?
According to that paper, no. Like what?
Why?
That's
Just
my
because?
point.
No,
What
no,
would
no.
that his-
You didn't look at his resume. You're just talking to me about his degree. Doesn't mean
Right.
so. No.
If the
That's
degrees in
no.
history, I would throw that out the window and then look at whatever else he has. But
That's my point. Because I mean, I get where you're arguing. My degree is in cybersecurity, and I'm an analyst. It has nothing to do with what I do. Absolutely not a soul. But
Right, but you also have-
I'm also got experience from my job. So my next job, I would probably not leave my job currently. But I'm just saying, if I went and applied, I don't even know if I would apply towards my degree because I didn't like what I went to school for in the first place. I would apply for an analyst.
and that's another thing. At 18, you don't have enough experience to know what you like.
That's why I didn't go to school at 18.
I know, but that's what society is pushing on people. As soon as you graduate high school, immediately go into college. Well, how the hell are they supposed to know what they're interested in?
Well, I mean, immediately going to college after high school is beneficial for some because they already know what they want to do. They want to be a doctor. So that's a long time of schooling.
Yeah, if they already know, that's one thing. But forcing everybody in there, no.
I've never been to college, so I mean,
I tried it, hated it, got out.
I
But
didn't even try.
and even during my short time in there, shit still kept on jumping around in my head. Like maybe I don't like it. I don't. Unless your degree is in what position you're going for, only then should I think that should have any effect at all. Other than that, I couldn't care less if you went to 6 years of college. If that's like saying having a doctor come up to a welding shop and saying, "Well, I got a doctorate in medicine, let me weld." What? No. Go away. Unless you have other experience to show me, then no. I want to take this 20-year-old kid who has 2 years of experience of welding and bring him on board over this doctor. Because your education doesn't translate at all.
So let me ask you, who gives you the experience? Who's that guy that's gonna give you the experience? Right. So I'm just saying, you're applying for a new job and it's like it requires 5 years experience or whatever. Who's going to give you that experience? That's where. So that is where the degree comes in. If they show that
how does 4 years of history translate to computer science?
Okay, if you're going to keep on using that one, that's a hard example. But like. Okay.
I mean, that's
no. Okay, let me do it this way. If you're gonna do just a 4 year, someone that went to college for 4 years for a history degree, and then you're gonna have another person that has no experience and no degree apply for the same job, I would give the person with the history degree more of an opportunity than the other person.
Well, right.
So
don't do that to me.
See? So your point,
No.
what you're arguing is only if the person has the experience. And I'm not saying I disagree with that, but if they have a degree versus someone that doesn't have a degree, they're obviously showing them, hey, I have a commitment to learning.
Well, see, that's then they need to. generally in positions other than lawyer.
I just
And-
brain fucked you in the head a little
No.
bit. Yes, I did.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it
Listen.
did. Don't worry.
Other than lawyers and like doctors, shit like that, where, okay, yes, common sense says I don't want you gaining your experience while chopping into people or putting somebody else's or fighting someone else's case, that being your experience. No, you need a degree to fight or do this. But in other positions, like, I don't know, management. Let's just go with management in general, because that's at that level is when people generally start saying, we need a degree. You need a degree. Then say a bachelor's degree of business management or some sort of business, not just bachelor's degree, and just stop there, because then that just leaves an open slate. If you're going to leave an open slate for a manager, hire from within, and the people that have been working for you for years know the job, know what needs to be done, put that person in the management level. But just because they don't have a degree, now suddenly they're not eligible for managing that place? No.
Ideally,
Some
that's how it would
22-year-old
work, though.
Huh?
Ideally, like, you want to hire from within first, but that's not always the case. Like,
That's the problem. More often than not, will they go out and find a 22-year-old to manage a crew just because he has a bachelor's degree in some random bullshit. All because he's got a paper on the wall. But this guy that has 20 plus years of experience in that field isn't eligible just because he didn't go to college.
Unfortunately, that's the case sometimes.
I know, and
But
that's what I'm saying.
At the same time, what if that person that has 20 fucking 8 years of experience is not capable to be a manager? How would you how would you handle that? No, I'm asking a question because that's on paper they have all the experience in the world. Like on paper, they look great. Have no management experience.
But who says the 22-year-old did? Just because he has a degree.
Yeah, that's my point.
Okay, minus that. Let's same person. Let's use it as someone coming out of high school, not going into a management or out of college, right? And someone that's 28 years of experience applying for the same job, not management, nothing, just the same type job. You would take the person with more experience or the young gun?
Wait a minute, not going into management? So
not going into management, just an entry-level job.
Can I answer this one? Because I actually kind of had a similar experience in my trade. This is trade.
I don't care who answers.
I had a guy who was 15 years into like automotive with his ASCs. That's fucking great. But I didn't want to hire him because, one, I'm the boss. And it's hard for men to work under women in those kind of scenarios. Two, also because when people are so far along in the trade with a high experience like that, it's hard to teach them, especially when it comes to the type of field I was in. I hired the guy who didn't have much experience, and unfortunately he didn't work out, but because he had a degree in visual arts, which means attention to detail, which is what you need in electrical work, is attention to detail. It doesn't always work, but I chose the guy with a degree in visual arts over an automotive technician with ASCs who's been doing this for 15 plus years.
Yeah,
because I needed someone who had the attention to detail. And when it comes to an older gentleman, especially when they're older than me and I'm their boss, it's a lot harder to teach them and show them what I'm doing because they're not going to listen to me. It's harder to teach someone who has all this experience because they think they know everything and they're better than everybody else than it is to take someone who doesn't have much experience and teach them, but they have a degree somewhere else.
Where it goes right back around to bum fucking your whole degree thing. I think. I'm not saying degrees are mandatory in any job. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying if you have a degree, it will open doors for you. And it doesn't matter what kind of degree you have.
I think it'll get your foot in the door.
That's
better.
Right. It opens doors. It opens
But
windows.
no, doesn't completely open it. It'll get you an interview, but that's about it.
That's opening a door. It's cracking open a door. It might
do
be.
agree with that statement.
But
also,
if you've
it's
got
like-
years of experience, that will get your foot in the door. It'll
will
get
get
you
your
the
foot in the
same
door.
thing as a college degree.
It should. I'm not saying it shouldn't, and that's not where
And
I
then
was.
once
That's not where I'm trying to argue. My thing was who deserves the opportunity.
I think
Just because they
If
didn't
you're-
have a degree in that spot, but they're obviously still applying and they're interested in that field.
the way I see it, if the degree is in that field, then no, if the degree is in that field, then it can be taken better. Because then yes, now you've got X amount of years of experience. But if the degree is not in that field, then to me it's complete garbage. Okay, yeah, I now know you can stick to something for 4 years, but that's about all I've got going for you.
So
Now let's look at your other experience. What else are you bringing to this table?
So for me, for example, like with the visual arts versus the ASEs, not everyone with ASEs can do electrical work, for one. Two, some of them never touch electrical. They only do mechanical, and that's it. But also third is someone with a visual arts degree, which means they have attention to detail. That is what arts are, is attention to detail, being able to take your time and analyze and see the full.
Yeah, but then if I were to see visual arts and looking at an electrical job, I would look at that as go, yes, you got attention to detail, that's great. But I'm going to have to teach you everything else. Whereas
I'd rather someone
this guy,
from ground zero than try to take someone who has all this experience, who thinks that they know it and doesn't know shit.
So-
And they are harder to teach than someone who has nothing.
right, so if it was going into some sort of entry or even mid-level, fine. But when it comes to management, where that guy's going to be telling other people how to do their jobs, they need to know how to do those other jobs.
I agree with that.
And I
think you
shouldn't
should
have to teach my manager how to do everything.
I agree with that. I shouldn't have to teach my manager how to do my job. Correct?
Neither should your
Right.
associates who work underneath you. Should have.
But more and more often, those nowadays managers don't know how to do the jobs underneath it because they got hired solely off of a piece of paper
I've
over experience.
But, okay.
had to train managers, and they've never been a manager a day in their life, and I had to train them.
Right.
Some of them didn't even work with. Some of them didn't even work with customers. Didn't work with people. They worked in an office setting, and they got a manager position.
Right. So I'm not saying don't teach them how to be a manager because that is a whole nother game.
But if I'm not a manager,
Right.
I shouldn't be teaching you.
Right. Right. So a manager, say I were to go into the position, right? I've got X amount of years of experience, but no manager experience. And then I'm competing with somebody else who has a college degree, but no experience in everything else. I think I would be better suited for that because I know how to manage everything else going on underneath me, but I need to be taught how to be a manager. Like learning times and payrolls and all of that can be taught. But then also needing to be taught how to be a manager, but also how to
Work in
do
the areas
every
that you're
single
gonna be
job.
managing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
should-
had a girl who worked in installed sales, never worked with customers. She only worked with our installers. Applied for a paint department manager position. Never worked a day on the floor. I've been in paint. I've trained in paint. I applied for the same position, and she got it over I did. And I had the experience, and she didn't. But I had to train her to be the department manager and teach her how to work in paint.
because
And I
she
was
had a
working for
degree.
Lowe's. She didn't have a degree.
She just got hired.
She just got hired. She got
See,
picked over me.
And I agree with you, Garrett. I believe the manager should know how to do everyone's job, or like the vice president should know how to do everyone's job that he is supervising. Correct? He should know how to do every single person's role. But that's never the case in any corporation. I guarantee you walk in to
I know it's not.
99% of the corporations and you go to the vice president and say, "Hey, do you know how to do such and such job?" They're not going to know.
I know it's not, and that's the problem.
Yeah, and I agree with you with that statement. But ultimately, I think we kind of got off topic here. We went, what was better, office or trade? And
I don't know. We kind of settled that.
it's office
They're both
versus trade.
just a different beast.
They're just a different beast of one another. And I think, personally, trade is where it's hurting the most at this moment, especially where I'm in, supply chain, and we need all the truckers in the world right now, and we don't have them.
We just need
You also
more.
need dock workers.
Correct.
We need every trade out there.
And no one really truly.
If anybody listens
truly
to this,
wants
basically the bottom line is one person. There's different people in the world. That's hence the old phrase, "It takes a village." There's people made for trade work, and that's fine. And then there's people made for office work. That's fine. But quit telling people, "Oh, well, one is better than the other," because it's not. You can make a shit ton of money in trade, and you can make a shit ton of money in office. But one isn't worse than the other.
Absolutely. And, with trade work, like which we need people in all sorts of trades nowadays. So there's schooling, which actually doesn't even take as long as getting a 4-year degree where you're going to go sit in an office. It takes 6 months to 18 months usually to get that certificate for the trade you're going for. And it's a certificate. It's not even a degree. It's just saying, hey, you completed this training and you know how to do this job. Welcome to the workforce.
10 weeks at most just to get your CDL.
That's the point. But people aren't taught to go for trade, and they should go for trade. Trade is where we need workers. Office job is great, and yes, like you said, there are people who are built for office.
We're hurting for trade, and if it doesn't get changed,
here's another option: go get a trade certificate first. That way, while you're working or while you're going to college for a degree, you can already be working, making good money while learning as well.
Well, and a lot of trades out there are now union too.
Yeah,
that's another subject.
Yeah. But no, like, it's always good to have as many certifications under your belt as possible. So why not go ahead and get a trade job or trade certificate first? Because it's shorter, you can make good money, and it's good experience. And who knows, you may end up liking it and sticking with that instead.
Absolutely. And with that being said too, is if you get a CDL, you don't have to go OTR. You can do in town and be home every day.
Yeah, there's
correct.
Every position of trucking is available right now.
But we need people to actually take the time and go and do it, because they actually do make great money.
We need people to quit saying trade work is lesser than office work.
Absolutely.
They don't want to work. They just want to be influencers on the internet. So
that's another subject as well. But all right.
I mean, trade versus office, though, at the end of the day, they're both very equal in the fields, but we do need one field more than the other. We need trade workers.
We need more trade workers, and yeah. Well, thank you for watching or listening and watching on YouTube.
Leave us your opinion.
See you next time.